Sarah Thompson, coming up with the Southwestern Commission.
Sure. Good evening.
Welcome.
Yeah,
Sarah.
Commissioners, staff, public. Thanks for a few minutes of your time tonight. I think this is my second annual report since I became director, but it's something I plan on doing, is coming to you once a year and talking a little bit about the commission, presenting our most recent annual report. Of course, I'm always happy to come another time if there's an issue that comes up that we can be of any assistance with. So tonight I brought our 2016 annual report, and I also brought the NC Tomorrow plan. Y'all may be familiar with the SEDS document that we create, which is the Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy for the region. We do that as part of our partnership with the U.S. Economic Development Administration. And in fact, at our board meeting later this month on September 25th, we'll be asking our board to approve the SEDS. The NC Tomorrow plan is all of the COGs, councils of government across the state, sort of compiled their economic development strategies into a statewide document. So I thought you might be interested in seeing that. So those are the two documents that I brought tonight. So as you know, the Southwestern Commission is the council of government for Region A, the 7 western counties in North Carolina, and the 17 municipalities within. We've been in service to the region for 52 years, since 1965. We're called COGs in North Carolina, Councils of Government, but organizations like mine exist all across the country. They're called planning commissions, economic development districts, something like that, but they exist in all the states in the country, and they were created in the mid-60s when a lot of federal aid programs were put into place that brought aid to local governments and to local issues, and it was determined that passing those funds through a regional organization made the most sense. So that's how we were born back in the 60s. And we've been running basically the same programs ever since. We work in 3 main departments. The Area Agency on Aging is the federal funding from the Older Americans Act, and the Workforce Department is federal funding from the Workforce Innovation and Opportunities Act. So both of those federal funds have been around since the late 60s, early 70s. They sometimes have different names depending on the administration in charge, but they've been around as long as we have. And we're largely a pass-through agency, so those funds come from the feds to the state adds their amount, they come to the region, you all add your amount, and then we contract with agencies in the region that provide those services. Our 3rd department is planning and economic development, so that's where I get to know a lot of local elected officials, because we do a lot of grant writing for infrastructure projects, community planning when requested by our local governments to assist with community planning, group facilitation, anything that y'all need that we provide, that's what that department does. So our dues are and have been 75 cents per capita for a really long time in a region with 200,000 people. That raises, in the range of $150,000, which we then use to leverage those federal funds, totaling a $6 million budget, the vast majority of which gets passed through to our communities. So as an example of how that works for you all, you pay about $22,000 a year in dues to the commission, and just in aging services alone, that brings in over $340,000 of federal funds for aging services.
Pretty good investment.
It is. The workforce stuff, you're all familiar with the NC Works Career Centers. They've been different names over the years. Again, different administrations like to change the names, but the services are still the same. So I think before it was NC Works Career Centers, it was JobLink. Some people still think of them as the Employment Security Commission or the Unemployment Office, but it's essentially the place where everyone should go if they're seeking employment or training or they've been displaced by a layoff. And so we have a lot of funding in those centers as well. Couple things I wanted to tell you about that are sort of new or specific or outside of what I already spoke about. I've been talking about the Mountain West Partnership for a couple of years now, but I want to keep it on your radar. When the state reorganized economic development, you'll remember Advantage West used to cover the western 27 counties, I think, and that was a state-funded economic development agency that was supposed to promote Western North Carolina for economic development. When that went away, all the economic developers in Region A and a lot of the local elected officials as well really felt the need to replace that effort in our own region. So the commission has administered and raised funds and managed this new economic development partnership for the 7 western counties. That's highlighted in our annual report, and it's a really good website with a resource directory for entrepreneurs and business owners. Anybody who is looking to do business in our region could find a lot of information there that they needed and get pointed towards the county they were interested in. So Mr. Jenkins, your economic developer, is on that board of directors, and I think it's going really well. We're also, I've spoken with Commissioner Shields about this, and your manager, of course. We're doing a regional broadband assessment. The commission has historically been an infrastructure agency. We've raised a lot of funds over the years for things like water and sewer and other basic infrastructure. We recognize that broadband is the infrastructure issue of this era, so we are attempting to help move the needle a little bit in Region A. Because broadband is not a public service and there are legislative barriers in North Carolina to the public sector getting involved, it's a little bit of a different process than we've been used to in the past. But we have contracted with a consultant whose team specializes in these types of projects, going into North Carolina and working with rural communities and figuring out how to crack the nut on this rural broadband issue. So your broadband committee in the county will be involved in this project. All 7 counties now have a broadband committee. Y'all were one of the first, so cheers on that. Good job. But it's going to start off fairly soon with a survey. And now a lot of people feel like we've already done a ton of surveys. We're going to over-survey the public. But really, to get a true regional assessment, we really need to get a lot of responses to this tool that we're going to be using regionally. So that's one thing I would ask of you, is when you see that come across your email, to please spread it amongst your contacts and network. And it's called aggregating demand. And I know y'all did a pretty robust survey, which is in the hands of the consultant. We are not going to ignore any work that's already been done. The other step in this short 3-month phase that we're in right now in December will be training for the region's broadband committees on what we can and can't do, public-private partnership models, legislation, funding, just trying to get the whole region on the same page as far as how we can make some progress in this last mile broadband. Last mile, middle mile, the terminology is essentially, I like to remind people that although we are a rural region, we're very blessed with a very strong middle mile infrastructure with the Balsam West ring that goes around our region. So now we have to figure out how to incent private providers to come into areas where the return on investment won't be huge. It's probably going to involve some money on the table that we provide, and I'm hoping that as we go through this process, perhaps some federal or state funding will come available to help rural communities build some infrastructure. So that's where we are with that. I'll keep you updated. Also, a couple of you came where we've been doing COG orientations once a year after elections. It's my attempt to get you all better oriented to our agency before your first budget meeting comes along and you see our line item and wonder why we're there. So as I send notices out about that, I hope you'll take the opportunity to come. But anytime that you want to sit down and talk to me about the commission, I'm available. Please just ask. Finally, last thing, the same day as our next board meeting, September 25th, Napoleon Wallace, who is the new Pat Mitchell, which only means something to you if you worked with Pat, but he's the Assistant Secretary for the North Carolina Department of Commerce for Rural Economic Development, and he'll be visiting our region that day. I will send your manager the specific information, but he's a good guy to know, holds the purse strings on a lot of state funds, and a really nice guy. We're going to be holding 2 sessions for him to meet leaders in the region on September 25th. So I think the one closest to y'all will be in Silva at 9 a.m. that morning, but I'll send Derek the information. So I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Sarah, I just want to say I appreciate what you've done for Macon County. You put us on the map. You've given us direction, and I just want to say personally thank you, and I hope these people here understand the role that you play within our region.
Well, thank you. I've said it in my letter in the annual report, but I really believe it, which is that all the federal programs are great and they bring a lot of money into the region, but I think the best thing about the Southwestern Commission is that it gives you all a regional voice and a way to work with your neighbors. And one thing I've realized since taking the director's position, of course I've been with the commission about 7 years, but our region has a reputation across the state for being really tight and working well together. And so I'm very proud of that, and I think y'all deserve the credit for that. So.
Thank you, Sarah, for all you do.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sarah.
Oh, and we are convening quarterly mayor's meetings now, and there's one tonight in Franklin, so I'm going to excuse myself and go join some of the region's mayors for tonight.
We wish we could go with you, but we'll stay.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.